right up to the black shadow. And it said, "You do not touch Jeremy Kramer. Jeremy Kramer is mine." I don't know what that was. I won't try to claim that. But that was an experience I had. That was not something I created with my mind. That was not something I put thought into. I came out of that meditation, and when I opened my eyes, it changed me forever. Even now, like it forever eradicated the hopelessness and the lie that I was alone, and that the depression wouldn't let up, and that my circumstances wouldn't change, that I was stuck. The hopelessness that never returned until this winter. Kind of, barely. There was like 1 week where I was really fucking sad, and I almost kind of didn't want to exist. But even then, it was very circumstantial and a very rough circumstance. And even then, there wasn't a real depth of wanting to not exist. Like it was a fleeting emotional response to not being able to meet my needs, being hungry and homeless, and having people I love and care for abandon and not care for me. Anyway, back to this. I woke up from that meditation, and I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified. There's been a degree of fear that stayed with me perhaps ever since that. But I more so felt safety and comfort and like unshakable, unquestionable faith in my spirituality and in my relationship with God. And that has helped me and made me stronger than anything. So that experience happened. Second part of it, I was so afraid of that experience that I would not sleep in that bedroom for about 10 years. I know that the land that neighborhood was built on was native land, and I read a little bit about it. Anyway, the spirits that it may have been there in that house or part of that land, I don't know, but I was completely sober. I was 24 years old at the same house where I tried to kill myself, where I had that experience, when I slept in that room again for the first time. And I had a glass of wine at dinner with my mother and my stepfather. I had I got like a tiny little buzz from the wine, at dinner. By the time I went to bed, I didn't, feel a buzz of any kind. Other than that, I was completely sober. I didn't have THC in my system. I wasn't stoned. I wasn't on drugs. This was crazier. This was the first night I slept in that room since I had that visualization. Almost basically 10 years, like exactly. And I don't really know the month, but it was 10 years apart. And as I'm laying in that room, is in the basement, a walkout basement. In the very front of my room, as you walk in, there is a smoke alarm with a tiny little lime green light on it. You probably know the little lime green light, or the red light, tiny little light that's on it. So as I close my door and my lights are off and I'm laying in bed, I can see the tiny little green light, and it's just enough light to begin to allow my eyes, as they're dilating, to begin to see the perimeters of the white walls. Just barely, like just barely. And as I'm starting to see the perimeter of the walls and my eyes are dilating, I look, and just to the right of the smoke alarm, like right at the door of my room, about 15 feet away from me, I see a black orb this big, a black orb next to it, and a black orb next to it. 3 of them. And I instantly was like, I haven't rubbed my eye in a while. why is there a blotch in my eye? I must have pressed into it too hard. You know, when you press on your eye and then there's a little blotch thing. Or when you look at a bright light and now you see a blotch thing. Like, that happens all the time. The eyes dilate, this, that. So instantly, just to like instinctually check what was going on with my eyes, I looked around the room like that, like rolled my eyes, and the blotches did not follow my eyes. They stayed over there by the door. And that's when I got instant cold goosebumps across my entire body, fear. One of the only times that it was actually a paralyzing fear. Like I literally, it was instant. As soon as I realized that they were not in my eyesight and that they were existing outside of me, or actually it was when I looked at them after I looked around the room, because I'm like, oh, they didn't follow my eyes. Are they staying still? Because it was still dark, you know, it could have been a shadow of any kind, you know, light playing lights on me. And so I look right at them, and they're wisping and moving like this. Like smoke. They're gyrating, kind of like in this motion, all three of them. And yeah, they're about that big, black, solid black, slightly transparent, but mostly solid black. And when I saw all of them moving like that slightly, that's when the fear came into me. And I just want to check if we're filming still, because I don't know. And yes, hope you can still hear me. Gosh, I've barely covered any ground. So I, like a scared little child, I was paralyzed with fear. I threw myself back and I put the covers over my head like this. And I just started praying, God, I need you, please help me, save me, God, protect me. I don't even know what I was saying. I was just praying so hard. And then I peeked my eyes over the covers like a terrified little kid, and all three black orbs were right here in my face. This close to me, like trying to come into me. And I instantly said, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. And my hands literally went through them, and then they dissipated and followed my hands and got pushed back, and they slowly went to the door, and then they went through the door, like literally phased right through it, and then I never saw them again. And I have slept in that room since. You know, that was 6 years ago, roughly. So yeah, so that is the first time I saw a spiritual entity in the physical realm. Was 6 years ago, to my memory, or in my adult life anyway. So that experience, that was my experience. I don't think I really need to speak on it much more, actually. My next experience, fear. So, when I was, gosh, do we start there? Yeah, I guess we start there. My beginning, the beginning of my education, my actual education of the world, started roughly around 19 years old when I was introduced to a hip-hop artist named Immortal Technique. And Immortal Technique is a hip-hop artist, a rapper, a spiritual activist, a fucking badass brother, and I just appreciate his creations and his efforts and his intentions. The lyrics of his music are quite profound, and I really suggest that you research the words and spiritually listen to his music, because that's what I did, and I began to learn a lot of things. I began to question a lot more things, and as different questions came to my awareness and different understandings of our history came to my awareness, I began to see the actual reality of the American system and how it's designed. And not just the American system, all economies and all countries and governments and authorities that ultimately are totalitarian. Totalitarian, which means that their agenda is the way that it's going to be, and there's no other choice. You either follow us or die. Hitler was a totalitarian. There's no accepting your ways, there's no conforming or us joining or you sharing your opinion ever. You do what the fuck I say or you die. That's totalitarian. And that's actually the government we live in, disguised as democracy. And pretty much the whole globe. Anyway, that's not really the part that moved me into this transition. But at 20, so I began to see that our economy and the Federal Reserve System was not a free, open market based on any backing of actual currency. We privatized a banking system that is based on creating debt to then basically subliminally enslave a population. So I, was very opposed to giving money to the government because they're not using it to pave the roads and educate our children and fight our fires and save us with all the policies that our police officers enforce. Sorry, bro, but the billions of dollars they take from us every year, it's all going to fund war. Every single part of it is going to fund war. And not a war against terrorists who, are bad guys that we're saving the world from. No, like creating war. It goes to intentionally creating war. All of it. So I was very opposed to paying rent. I also went through a whole experience where my entire house burnt down and I lost everything I owned. And after that trauma, the trauma of spending a year in jail, the trauma of military school, the institutionalizations, the suicide before that, public high school, oh my gosh. I had a lot of unhealed and unprocessed transitions and wounds and I developed a lot of patterns of disassociation and escapism through this trauma, I've come to learn. I don't remember that part of it per se, so how it led into this story, moving into the van. Yeah, so I lost, because that was where I was at 19. I'm learning more about the corruption while my life is kind of falling apart. I lost everything I own. My dog died. I almost died. Gosh, I want to look at the camera more. I want you to see my eyes more. And gosh, I hope you can hear me okay. So I was kind of, after the house burnt down, like, I was just glaze over my being, my spirit. Like, I was just floating through my life. Like, I was not ready to make a choice. I was 19. Go be an adult. Good luck. You just had that year in jail, and then 6 months later, you almost burnt alive and lost everything you own. And actually, you're going to live on your own when the house is done being rebuilt. So there's your intro to adulthood. Good luck. At the time, that was basically the experience for me. That's how it felt. And I just kind of followed along with my sister. And I really, at that age and that time, I wasn't capable of making life-changing decisions for myself. Even like trying to find some really shitty apartment to live in with her that I didn't want to live in and spend my money on. So I did that with her for 6 months or more and started not paying rent. And I just learned that this month. I don't even remember that happened. But I bought a minivan and I moved into a minivan with the insurance check I got from all my things from the fire. And so at 20 years old is when I moved into a minivan. And yes, I'm sure. 2 experiences. My intro. So about 3 years into living in this minivan, this Honda Odyssey, I still hadn't traveled in it. I hadn't left the state ever. I was installing hardwood flooring with my father full time. And I would stay at the Island Lake carpool lot. Right there at Kensington Road and 96, I think. I'm not in that area often anymore. I would sleep in my van in that carpool lot every night almost every night, every month for what, 2 to 3 years? So if it was actually every night, that's over 1,000 times that my vehicle was in that same parking lot every night. Obviously, it wasn't every night, but we can say, you know, over that 2 to 3 year span, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, to the point where I began to recognize the 3 different sheriffs, because the counties that cross the border right there, you got Oakland County, Washtenaw County, and Livingston County. Green Oak, not Washtenaw. Green Oak, Livingston, and Oakland. They all patrol right there. The borders all kind of are close by. So occasionally you'd see one of those 3, but you'd always see, gosh, I don't even remember. I don't think it was Oakland. You typically would see Livingston County. I don't remember. But when there'd be like, typically there'd be my minivan and 3 to 5 other cars in the whole carpool lot. They'd pull in, they'd do one little circle, and they'd shine their little spotlight on every car, just to make sure, I don't know, no one's getting killed or raped or doing drugs. But I recognized after about the first year, and ever since that first year, they wouldn't even shine their light on my van. They would literally shine, like, enter the carpool lot. My van's right here. I park in the same spot every time. It's best level spot, great peace spot outside of it. It's my spot. They would shine their light and then dip it down and dip it back up after my van. They knew I lived in it. Like, I truly feel, okay, that is an opinion. I am going to share opinions. Forget what I said. I don't know, but my true intuitional observation and experience proved to me that I know that they had awareness that a man lived in that same minivan they saw for 3 years. And, you know, that man's doing his thing. He goes to work, he lives in his van. A lot of people, you know, it's not as common as it is today, 10 years later, but, or 7 years later. But anyway, I was sleeping in that carpool lot. I remember vividly. I went to bed at like 8 or 9 p.m. I showed up like an hour before dark. And I peed in the woods,